and welcome back to Gaming the System, the podcast where intersectional feminists examine gaming through a feminist lens. And for this episode, it's me, Alex, and Jem, and we're here to talk about The Sims, perhaps one of the best-known games among even non-gamers, certainly. So I guess what I want to kick off with this episode is just to talk about, because it's been going for a couple of decades now, at least, The Sims. I can't remember when the first Sims originally came out, but at least for my own experience of it, it's one of the very few games where I've been a PC gamer, because if followers of the podcast will know that I primarily play on PlayStation. But I think The Sims is one of those games that crossed the line into PC and was definitely one of my very earliest gaming experiences with family as well. But yeah, I guess I'd just be curious to know your history with The Sims, Jem, and kind of where it all started for you.
Yeah, I think I started playing it when it originally came out. Which, do you know when that was? It's like
I can have a quick
2000,
Google.
or was
See,
it?
I've come prepared for this episode,
Yeah.
but I'll put Sims 1 release date, because I'm sure it was on the cusp of the millennium, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it was 2000.
Yes,
So,
4th of February 2000. Goodness.
yeah, so back in 2000, I was living in a shared house in London.
Mm.
I was, almost all the way through my degree. That's how old I am.
Gosh, that makes me feel, at the time I would have been 9. So, wait, no, would I? Wait, no, I would have been, do maths, brain. I was born in 1990, so yes, I would have been,
coming up to 10, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Complete brain failure there. I would have been 9 going on 10. Yes, so still in primary school. Hello. Who's that? For audio listeners, a cat has joined our episode. So hello, Leela. So still in primary school, and I think it was one of the games. I can't remember what kind of Windows system we were operating. Must have been Windows
98.
98, I expect. Yeah. So going back quite some time, and it's one of the games me and my sister played together. My sister's 4 years younger than me. I guess it was one of the things, like I mentioned before, about various other games that we've kind of bonded over. And I'd say that my sister's not really a gamer, but she does play The Sims even now still. And it is probably the only game that she does play, which I always thought was quite interesting. I think in terms of target audiences and thinking of gamers in general, I always feel like The Sims has kind of been slightly different in that it attracts a different set of people to play it, or that it's got maybe a wider audience than some of your more traditional gamer games, or stereotypical gamer games like COD, or shooters, or action adventures and stuff. I don't know whether that's to do with just the content of the game and the way there's no violent, well, not necessarily violence, although you can be quite violent in it. It depends, really. Do you think it's just the creative nature of The Sims that brings in that different audience, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things, actually. It appeals to gamers and non-gamers. And I think for gamers who their shoot 'em ups, or their adventure games and things like that, or their spacey games, it's a nice calm game to play when you're just not in the mood for those kind of high octane games. And I think that same reason is something that's valid for non-gamers as well. Or I wouldn't say that. I mean, there obviously are gamers, but they're not playing the usual ones. So I think it's appealing because it's slower. there's no winning or losing in it.
No.
It's just being. And so I think that there's something about it which appeals to people who maybe find other games too fast or too complicated or too competitive. And
Yeah.
so, it's quite nice. And like you say, it's a very creative
Mm.
game. Always has been. And talking later about the newer versions, but I mean, it's always been a creative game, and the options of what you can do and how you can sort of develop a sort of it's not of a virtual world. It's sort of like a sidestep world.
Mm.
It's up until recently when they brought out sort of occult stuff and
Yeah.
werewolves and vampires and things, but before that it was just normal life. You get up, you go to work, you come home, you eat dinner, you go to bed, and there was it was like micromanaging, so it was like taking the idea of a god game to a completely different level. So I think it just has quite a lot of things that can appeal to a lot of people for very different reasons. So I think it has a very broad base.
Definitely. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I think, obviously, I guess the clue is in the name Sims. I always thought it was short for simulator or like simulation or something, but it is essentially a life simulator. And I think, I don't know, this sounds a bit weird, but I always got a sense of satisfaction about the level of control I had. Certainly the earlier ones, the earlier Sims 1 and Sims 2, which came out in 2004, incidentally, if anyone's curious. But it is like you can play it and know that there's a sense of security there, and that you can steer the destiny of these Sims you've created to be what you're looking for and what you'd want out of a life experience, I suppose. And I think also what appeals, like you say, is the idea that you can live a very normal life. You can go up, go to work, go to bed, eat food, but you can also have a completely opposite life if you really wanted to. You can do anything you want, which I think is another massive appeal for the game as well. I can't remember what point they brought it in, but there were. I'm sure it's definitely a thing in the most recent Sims 4. But is it true that if you go away for a long period of time and come back, your Sims will just carry on living their lives and doing whatever they want and having families and making friends while you're away, and you can come back and they can have a completely different life while you've been gone?
I don't know. I don't. I think if you leave them in the neighborhood and then you go and create another
Yeah.
family and you play the game, then yes, I think they will carry on living their existence. If
Yeah.
you don't play the game for a while and come back, then no, I don't think so, because it's done on a save game
Yeah.
basis, so you'll just pick up where you last left off. But yeah, I think if you have a set, because you can create different households within the neighborhood, or you can just play existing ones, so
Yes.
there's all of that. Yeah, I think it's I mean, it's funny because it also gives you opportunity to micromanaging people's lives, and to the point that you take them to the toilet and make sure they
Yeah.
wash their hands and all of those sorts of things. And the Sims could be really, really stupid sometimes, but I mean, I always used to end up like setting the kitchen on fire in the early games, because
Yes.
unless you had a fire alarm,
That's true.
basically while
Yeah.
you were learning to cook, you would always end
Yeah.
up setting the house on fire.
I remember
And
that
then
being a problem for me in Sims 1.
yeah,
Quite regularly, all my hard work of building a house was like completely dashed after I set the kitchen on fire. Terrible.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I think there's a interesting slant to it where you kind of learn about like money management before you know the cheats, of course, to get more money. Because you have to kind of budget for like what you can afford to start off with, which isn't very much. and you kind of start from the bottom and rise up. I think that sense of progression through the game is something that's always been there as well. In terms of like my favorite parts of the game, I was trying to think about which parts I like more than others. It's really hard because they all have their own sort of special things about them. And I think when going back to the very first Sims, always the most exciting thing to start off with is obviously the character creator, where you get to create your Sim. And I know that the variety that is on offer has expanded greatly from Sims 1 to the present day. But it was always fun to, I think, I don't know if this is the same for most people, but I always tried to recreate myself in a game. And The Sims is one where you can pretty easily, at least, try to make a Sim that looks like you and kind of live the life within the Sim world that you would want to live, I guess. It's kind of almost, well, it is basically an alternate reality form of escapism almost, which I always find quite interesting. But I think some people prefer the kind of side where you're planning a house, you're building a house, and some people get really into like the architecture of a house and designing these
Yeah.
beautiful spaces and creating like lovely interior designs for their Sims to live in. And other people just are very basic, oh, here's a box you can live in. We don't need to worry about like what it looks like or anything like that.
Yeah.
How far on the scale of those two would you say you are, Jem?
Well, I think I like the new houses that
Mm,
like I like developing the houses and creating a nice environment. Like you said, I created a Sims 2 because it would have been sort of
yeah.
2007, 2005, 2006,
Mm.
and I was living in my first house that I'd bought, and or that my partner and I had bought, and we did the whole house in Sims as our house
Oh,
and us,
that's really
and
nice.
yeah, and just kind of like lived it all out, and that was a really fun thing to do, and to try and find things that matched
Matched.
my
Yeah.
furniture and my house, and
Oh,
color schemes and all of that, was really fun. And then I think, then there's other stuff when you pick a theme and everything's really dark and gothic,
yes.
or everything's
Yeah.
like, really retro, and that's really fun. I think the thing is that I used to find challenging within that um is that you also have to live their lives for them,
Yeah.
and they also have to be well enough and healthy enough to go and earn the
Mm.
money that you need to do this. And I know there's cheats codes and stuff. I have never used any of
Have you
those.
never?
No, I've
Wow.
never have. So I think maybe I missed out.
Wow. Yeah.
I should
No,
have
as
done
soon as
that.
we found out about cheats in The Sims 2, me and my sister were like, right, let's get on this, write them down, keep a record. Yeah, we had a little bit of paper in our little game folder. We had like one of those binders where we keep like game walkthroughs and things. And we had a page on The Sims with Sims cheats in it. It was really good. Um, yeah, I think there's all sorts of different ones, probably loads that I don't even know. But yeah, in the early days of Sims 2, definitely. And I think Sims 2, Ellie said, my sister, always had a special place in her heart because that was the one I think she was the most obsessed with, that she played the most throughout her childhood. Um, she did mention that she didn't like The Sims 3 as much. I don't know if you've played The Sims 3, but
I was trying to remember whether I played
yeah,
Sims 3. I mean,
I
I
can't remember
definitely
if I
played
did.
1 and 2, and
Yeah,
now I'm playing 4.
yeah. So
But I
maybe 3
feel
was a
like
bit
I
of a
might have
blip for
missed
a lot
it.
of
Yeah.
people. Yeah, interesting. I know there's certainly a few sort of spin-offs that I remember playing a lot on PlayStation 2 and possibly PlayStation 3. But I think Sims Busting Out, the one where it was focused on the world of work and getting certain
Mm.
careers and progressing in your career, that was
Yeah.
kind of the crux of busting out. And that one I think I played on PS2, and I went through the whole. I think I was an artist for a lot of it, and you start out with a little sort of moped that you ride around to get to work, and eventually you can earn enough money to get a car, and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, I remember that one. The most frustrating thing about it was the amount of time I spent tidying up trash, uh, which might be a little too close to home, too close to reality for some gamers
Yeah.
out there. But yeah, there were times when I used to be taking out trash, and it would just the bags would break and they'd fall all over the floor, and then I'd spend another half an hour trying to clean up the trash that had fallen when I needed to sleep and go to work the next day. That was always a fun one. I have very fond memories of that one. The other one, which I think actually was on Game Boy, was the Herbs, which is not quite The Sims, but very similar to The Sims. Spelled URBZ, I think, and did
Oh yes,
feature
I have heard it. Yeah.
FYPs, I believe, at one stage. And again, that was kind of similar. You start out as a window washer, and you progress up the career ladder. But there was this one mini game in it where you had to clean the windows, and some seagulls kept coming over and pooing on the windows, and you just had the squeegee, and you were going along trying to clean it. But the music in that, I think, was all done by the Black Eyed Peas as well. So there was
Oh
some
wow.
catchy beats in there. It was quite a fun little one for the Game Boy that I remember very fondly as well. But yeah, I haven't. I think I dabbled in The Sims 4, but I must say I have not played it um, like I used to as much as The Sims 2. I think just
Mm.
because I've kind of migrated onto PS5 gaming, although I think you can buy it for the PS4.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, I
Do
don't
you
know.
so regarding your earlier question, what
Mm.
about you? Are you more um house building or career building or
Yeah, I think I enjoyed
socializing?
the career aspects more than the social side. I always found that a little bit more difficult for some reason. I think just because of the amount of time it takes to build up relationships and stuff. And I think we'll talk about it in the next episode. There's been a very recent expansion all about relationships
Mm.
that's come in. But yeah, I think I always just preferred searching the newspaper for jobs and that kind of thing. I'm very sort of, I guess I was task orientated, where I was like, right, we've got to do this bit and then this bit and tick these boxes, rather than who can I make friends with today? Even though social was obviously an important aspect of your Sims well-being, which is
Yeah.
another thing. Another thing we could talk about, I guess, is in a way how the game teaches you about how you have all these different aspects of your life that you need to be able to look after. And so actually mental health is a really big part of that. And within
Mm.
that is being sociable, perhaps,
Yeah,
which is
absolutely.
another interesting thing as well. Um,
Yeah.
but
Especially with a
yeah,
game that soaks up so much of your time.
definitely, yes. Yeah. Yeah. I spoke to Ellie about it. I said, "How often do you play nowadays?" And she said that she goes through phases where she just doesn't play, and then times where it's completely the opposite, and she's fully obsessed, and she'll play it
Mm.
for days on end. And
Yeah.
just yeah, I think in that way it can be very sort of addictive, because you're like, "Oh, I'll just do one more thing, and then I'll check back tomorrow, and make sure it's going okay."
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. Yeah, but no, I did enjoy decorating where my Sims lived, and just making sure it all matched and looked nice. Definitely, I was more of one of those. I think that's translated into real life now, living away from my parents independently. I'm like, we must match the color scheme that we've created in the flat, and yeah, you can see I'm matching my sofa today, actually, um, which is quite funny. Um, yeah, so that's always been interesting. But I think if I was to be given half an hour to just dabble around on The Sims 4, I'd probably very quickly want to start playing it again and pick it up. But I just have never got around to sort of actually, I think I have got it on PlayStation Plus actually. I should probably look into it.
The
Um,
base game is free nowadays.
yeah, oh, is
So
it? That
yeah,
makes sense
yeah.
actually. Yeah, because I was going to talk about also the fact that a lot of the game is based around expansion packs. It certainly was from The Sims 2, the very first time those sorts of DLC type content became the norm. And I remember asking Mum if we could buy like the pets expansion and all sorts of different things. That's when it really began in the early sort of 2004 onwards, really. But that's obviously a model that works for the Sims creators. And it does mean, though, that playing The Sims, if you want to have every single aspect of it, is going to cost you a lot of money.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's an interesting thing to consider, I think. I can't remember exactly how much each expansion pack costs. Is it about £30? Or am I
£39. Yeah.
£39? Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
really gone up in price, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, do you have any thoughts on like the quality of the expansion packs for that price, or do you think it's
Well,
overpriced? Or
the in this for The Sims 2,
yeah,
I did buy a number of the expansion packs. Like I bought Medieval Sims and
yes,
another
yeah,
one, and and none of them really worked for
mm,
me. None of them. I don't think they were worth the money actually. And I
yeah,
don't. I they you'd get a few extra um outfits and a few a different house, and that it just never felt like it really it just, yeah, it did not
mm,
feel worth the money.
yeah,
But I used to buy them anyway
yeah,
because I think the thing is that, like you say, about like Ellie and having times when she's playing it
mm,
constantly and then not for a while.
yeah,
And I've been the same. And I think it does get boring after a while
yes,
because
yeah,
you've got the same stuff and you have a routine and all of these things. So the expansion packs work well because they're ways to get you back
yes, stick
interested
you
because
back
there's a whole
in,
new set of stuff.
yes,
Yeah. And and so I can see that from that perspective. But I think now, well, we'll talk about now later,
mm,
but no, I do think that the expansion packs are expensive for what you get. I think these days they're slightly better for what you get.
mm-hmm,
But I do
yeah,
think it's always worth reading the reviews and doing a
yeah,
bit of research before getting any of them. And I
yeah,
definitely regretted the Medieval Sims
mm,
expansion.
yeah,
It was rubbish.
yeah,
And but I think, if Matt was here, I think he would probably have a big rant about the
certainly
capitalist
would, yeah,
system because it
yeah,
is, like you say, Sims is great because it teaches you about budgeting, and it teaches you
mm,
about the fact that you have to go out to work to earn money, and it teaches you about the importance of taking care of
yes,
yourself and the need
self-care
to
and yeah,
balance, yeah, all of that. But it's also bad because it's almost all fixated on purchasing things
yes,
and
yes,
building your house to get bigger and bigger
mm,
and more, and there's not an easy way. I mean, you can play it differently, but there's not an easy way to play the game with a more,
mm,
for your sim to gain enlightenment, or to
yes,
get, to have other ways for your sim to sort of express. Again, I think they are working on that now,
yeah,
but up until recently, that hasn't been an option really. You kind of,
no,
if you want things, unless you use the cheats, if you want stuff, your sims have to work,
mm,
and they have to keep increasing their income.
incomings, yes, yeah,
Really frustrated though when I was playing years ago, and
mm,
so it must have been probably Sims 2. And my sim reached the top of their career tree,
yeah,
and then they quit
oh, wow,
to have another career. And I was like,
yeah,
it's
oh,
like gone
that's
from earning
yeah,
like,
all that work to
2,000
get
a
to the top,
day.
yeah,
It's like
wow,
earning £50, 50 simoleons a day.
mm,
So
yeah, oh dear,
crazy.
wow, I must have got bored with it. clearly it needed a change. Definitely. Well, one thing also I was thinking about, you've mentioned simoleons. I think the world that has been crafted through The Sims has kind of taken on a life of its own. It's got its own language as well.
Mm.
Is it Simlish? I think it's called.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe Katy Perry did a song in Simlish at one point for, I think it was to advertise The Sims, but I'm not sure. Or it's included in The Sims as a song. I can't remember which one it was, but she sang it in Simlish and it's in the game, which I thought is quite interesting as well. But it's interesting to think about, I guess, the society that is largely reflected in The Sims. Would you say that is Western society?
Yes.
Yes, I would
Yes.
agree.
Although
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I do think no, it's Americanized Western, um, white, middle
Yeah.
class.
Yeah.
I think it's, yeah.
Because I remember they introduced slightly more diversity in The Sims 2. From The Sims 1, it was quite a big leap. I remember especially being impressed, obviously, with the improvement in like the graphics and the way the game looked and the amount of the more options you had for customization and things like that. There were different skin tones and things, but essentially, it was like dressing up mutton as lamb, to put it bluntly, because it is still very much a Western like outlook on your Sims life journey, I guess, and how they go about living their life is very much Americanized and westernized and
Yeah.
capitalist. So yeah, it'd be really interesting to discuss what's happening now in The Sims and what might happen in the future in part
Mm,
2 of our discussion, which
yeah.
we'll be moving on to shortly. But did you have any other thoughts about like the older Sims games before we finish the episode for today?
I think that they broke new ground, really, The
Mm,
Sims. I think it brought something to the world that, the gaming world, that I don't think has been rivaled
mm,
since. I don't, even all these years later, like as you said, there were there were attempts to these other similar games, and obviously simulation games
mm.
are, massively varied, and you can get one in almost every, flavor, really. But there's nothing out there that compares that genre and this in this
Mm.
style with The Sims. There's nothing. You don't go like, oh, you're playing The Sims, or you're playing, I don't know, Citizens or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
There isn't anything else. And
no,
I think that's testimony to their environment and their game design. I mean, I
mm,
think it is interesting. I mean, obviously, like if you've got something, just keep making it work.
yeah,
But I mean, we're sitting here in 2023 talking about a game that is now 23 years
mm,
old, and
yeah,
um, that's crazy, because it's got better, but it has, its basic premise hasn't changed at all.
no,
And I think, from the perspective of our podcast, what's really interesting is that the vast majority of people that play Sims are female.
mm,
So it's an
yes,
entry into the gaming world for women, and it's younger women who play it. So, there's something there to be learned, I think, about what kind of games we should be putting out there.
certainly. Well, thank you very much, Shem. I think I'll wrap up this part of our Sims discussion for today. So, thank you very much for listening and watching. If you liked this episode, please give us a like, share it, rate it, tell all your friends, and let us know what you think of The Sims. Do you have any memories of older Sims games that you want to share? You can let us know. And also, if you would like to support us, you can also subscribe to our Patreon. There's a link in that corner. I always get it wrong. In the top corner there, and we'd love it if you could support us as well. So until next time, thank you very much, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Gaming the System. If you want to support us, you can donate to us through our PayPal by sending it to wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com if you want to send us a one-off donation. If you want to donate to us monthly, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gamingthesystem. Until next time, bye-bye.